Hi students, Mr. Murphy here, and I have the last of my videos on how to solve a quadratic equation. So the last strategy is called the quadratic formula, and it's really popular, and it works on any equation like completing the square. So I'll show you how to do one right now. So the quadratic formula is a pretty intense formula. It's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and the whole thing is divided by 2a. So that's a super intense formula, and you might be like, that's way too many variables. But the good thing is, it can work in any quadratic equation, and it comes from this form that the equation must be set equal to 0. So ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So this should look familiar. There's our standard form of a quadratic function. And if it's in this form, you plug in the a, the b, and the c, and you'll be able to get both solutions. Now, you might ask, like, where did this come from? And it's pretty intense, but basically, some really smart math people took this relationship, took this equation, and solved it for x, so moved all the stuff around, and solved this equation for x, and that's your answer. So in terms of x, this is your relationship. So I can show you that in another video, how it works and why it works, and it's certainly out there on YouTube if you like. But let's move into the example. So over here, here's how you use the quadratic formula. So the first step is you must set it equal to 0. So 3x squared plus 5x minus 8 equals 0. After it's set equal to 0, that's where you want to identify your a, your b, and your c. So a is 3, it's the coefficient of x squared, b is 5, and c is negative 8. So what you're going to do is you're going to take these values and plug it into the formula negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So as I plug it in, x equals negative b, so negative 5, plus or minus the square root, so b is 5, 5 squared minus 4, times a is 3, times c is negative 8, and the whole thing is divided by 2 times 3. Okay, so all I've done is I've copied the formula and substituted in. Now as you work through this, you want to work under the square root first. This expression has a fancy name called the discriminant. And if students make mistakes, this is usually the most common mistake. It's in here. So look at that in your work when you first start to do it. Okay, so I'm going to simplify the discriminant. So negative 5 plus or minus the square root of, okay, 5 squared is 25. Now here, it's really important. Note that I'm not carrying down the subtraction. I'm just going to do out this math. 3 things being multiplied. Okay, so negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 12 times 8 is positive 96. Okay? So, actually that's not right. 12 times 8. Oh, it is 96. Okay, just checking myself. Okay, and the whole thing is divided by 6. So as I work through there, now I'll have x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root 96 and 25 is 121 over 6. So now the square root of 120 was 11, so now I have my two answers. X equals negative 5 plus 11 divided by 6. That's one solution. And the other answer is x equals negative 5 minus 11 divided by 6. Okay, negative 5 plus 11 is 6. 6 over 6 is 1. So that's one answer is 1. Negative 5 and negative 11 is negative 16 over 6, which reduces to negative 8/3. So those are my two solutions, 1 or -8/3. Okay, now that's a lot of work and it's busy, so we have other strategies like how could you double check it? You could graph it, you could factor it maybe or something like that and hope you get these two answers. Okay, so there's all my work for one example. Next, I want you to try one on your own, see if you understand it. So there's my equation, 4z squared equals 7z plus 2. So make sure you follow steps, set it equal to 0, plug it in, and solve under the square root first. Okay, hit pause, because I'm going to reveal the answer in a moment. Okay, so here are the two answers. So after a decent amount of work, one answer is x equals 2, and the other answer is x equals -1/4. Once again, compare your work. Make sure you got a discriminant of 81. That's a common mistake some students make. And obviously send me an email if you have any questions. Thanks.